Welcome to the Narrative Keys, where we break down the narratives behind the headlines and map the hidden links clearly. In almost every major case, there is one moment when rumor collides with geometry. Where was Charlie Kirk? Where does the state say the attacker was? What could be seen? What could be reached? What could be done in the time available? This is that episode. Episode 1 established the baseline. There is a real case, a real filing, and a real prosecutorial theory. Episode 2 moves into space and sequence. This is the point where the state's story becomes mechanical instead of rhetorical. According to the charging information, Charlie Kirk was speaking at an outdoor Turning Point USA event at Utah Valley University. The state places him under a portable canopy, seated behind a table and microphone, facing a crowd. Temporary barriers separated attendees from the stage area. Above and behind that event space sat a key part of the environment, the Hall of Flags walkway and adjacent roofline. That matters because the state's theory is spatial. It is not only that Charlie Kirk died, it is that prosecutors believe the event can be traced to a specific elevated position, a specific route, and a specific recovery chain. According to the filing, about 15 minutes into the event, the incident occurred. A UVU officer immediately began scanning for a likely elevated position and focused on a roof area about 160 yards away. At that location, the filing says police saw disturbances in the gravel consistent with a person having been positioned there. The filing also says surveillance video captured a person in dark clothing crossing from a public walkway onto the roof and then fleeing moments after the known time of the incident. That is the official physical story. Not motive, not politics, not biography, physical placement. The roof matters because it is one of the few parts of this case that can be tested against geography. If the state's path works, it strengthens the prosecution's reconstruction. If the path contains gaps, pressure falls on timing, visibility, and interpretation of the footage. The filing goes further. It says officers and later investigators traced a suspected escape route away from the roof area. Along that route, the state says a bolt-action rifle was recovered, wrapped in a towel. Prosecutors say DNA consistent with Tyler Robinson was found on the object, on forensic material, and on the towel itself. That creates the state's physical chain. Stage, roof, movement, recovered object, biological evidence. For the prosecution, that is not just a scene, it is a sequence. This is also the point where many public viewers began to feel that the case was either becoming clearer or becoming stranger. The more specific the state's layout became, the more people began asking their own questions. Could the line of sight work exactly the way the state describes it? How strong is the video? How complete is the movement path? How much of the account depends on direct footage? And how much depends on reconstruction layered onto physical evidence? Those are fair questions. But fair questions are not the same thing as automatic collapse. This is where a lot of internet case reading goes wrong. People hear one disputed detail and start acting as if no official reconstruction exists. The stronger approach is to separate three things: what the filing directly alleges, what the available physical layout appears to support, and what still has to be tested in court. At this stage, the state's theory is not just narrative, it is geometry tied to evidence. And that is why this episode matters. Before the bigger institutional questions, before the public response analysis, before the most speculative network theories, there is a roof, a path, a recovered object, and a sequence that prosecutors believe they can defend. If you understand that sequence, you are in a much better position to judge every later claim that tries to challenge it or expand beyond it. In the next episode, we widen out to the prosecution's story as a whole, the charges, the surrender, the alleged concealment, and why obstruction and witness tampering counts changed how the public read the case. This is the Narrative Keys.